Prosecutors building a case against the man accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students have told a judge that one of the officers involved in the case is being investigated by internal affairs. Prosecutors filed a notice saying the state became aware of a potential Brady Giglio material that refers to a constitutional obligation to ensure a fair trial and to disclose material that could impact a finding of guilty. Now, the prosecutor does not say what the information is, or if it involves this case specifically or just an officer who is involved in the case. We did try to get clarification, but because of a gag order, no one involved in the case can answer any of our questions.
Today, the 1122 Kings Road was demolished. I personally believe that Ann Taylor should file for Brady Giglio order. Since they aren't getting the evidence, the 3 unidentified male DNAs, the roadmap of the genealogical DNA from the touch DNA on the knife sheet, and now they've demolished the house. This doesn't look like it's going to be a fair trial.
In for Dan Abrams tonight. He is on vacation this week. Thanks a lot, Chris. We're going to continue to cover this breaking news, these documents that just came out right before the show in the case of Bryan Kohberger, the suspected Idaho student killer, revealing what could actually be a major problem for prosecutors. Possible misconduct on the part of an officer involved in the case. That was revealed during an internal affairs investigation and could involve information that could actually help the defense. In a notice filed to the court on Monday and released just a little more than an hour ago, state prosecutors have now notified the court that, quote, the state has become aware of potential Brady Giglio material related to one of the officers involved in the above referenced case. That material in the form of confidential internal affairs investigation, key in on that word right there, is hereby submitted in camera to the court. And the state goes on to say it will disclose this information to Kohberger's attorneys, but because the information is confidential, prosecutors are asking the judge to issue a protective order to prohibit defense counsel from, quote, disseminating the information contained in the internal affairs investigation without court approval. Look, I know it's confusing. I was just telling Jesse Weber, who joins us now, I had to read the document like 3 times. I'm not a lawyer, but certainly this doesn't seem like a good thing for the prosecution.
It's called the Brady Giglio issue, right? So what that means is prosecutors by law have to turn over to the defense any evidence that might help the defense, might exonerate the defendant. And that includes, and this is the Giglio portion, any evidence that might impeach the credibility of a witness. And who have they referred to here? A police officer. As part of an internal affairs investigation. So what could this be? What's the worst case? Let's say this was an officer that provided an affidavit in support of a search warrant for key evidence in this case. If that officer lied as a part of that affidavit, if this officer withheld information as a part of that affidavit, potentially this evidence could be thrown out. This is a big problem for the prosecution. Now, I heard Dave Aronberg on Cuomo's show. This could also be something different. This could be something personal about the officer. But by law, they'll have to disclose it because let's say here's a different example. An officer maybe had a pattern of misconduct. Maybe it wasn't directly related to the Kohberger investigation. But if this is an officer who maybe lied in the past or had some sort of misconduct, this is something the defense needs to know, whether they cross-examine the officer or not in a future trial. But I think this is going to be very important for the defense, and clearly we don't know what this information is. It is under seal, but I have seen cases before be dismissed because of Brady Giglio violations and officers terminated because of this.
So basically it seems that there is an officer involved in the Kohberger case who has an internal affairs investigation. The prosecution has now decided we need to make this, we need to make the defense aware of it. Is it possible the prosecution is just thinking, look, this is a huge case. We we want to be as careful as possible. This isn't a big deal, but let's do this anyway? Or does this mean that it's actually something significant?
They, by law, have to turn over anything that might meet that criteria. So they are doing their job. We don't really know how significant it ultimately is, but when I read the words of an internal affairs investigation, my first thought is whatever this officer did or did not do, it makes it seem like it might not just be this case. It could be something further. And look, at the end of the day, we're not sure what the impact is going to be. But when you hear the Brady Giglio violation, I've seen problems. I've seen cases thrown out. And officers, this is the last thing they want to be on. I mean, if you are put on this list of potential violations, it could really torpedo your career and can really blacklist you in a way.
So is it possible that we'll figure out what all of this means? Because there's the gag order in place. With this whole situation in case, we've been having to piece together puzzle pieces because there's so much redacted every time they release something. You think we'll get the details on this?
Potentially. There's a part of it where if, let's say this case is ultimately dismissed, I'm not saying that's going to be the case. I'm curious to see what would be allowed to be said about it or not. Then again, if this officer, and if evidence is thrown out, that's a separate question. But if this officer, whoever it is, makes it to a trial, they can be cross-examined about this material, and maybe eventually we would learn what it could be.
It's going to be interesting. Jesse, you were at dinner. We called you. Oh my gosh, there was a document dump.
It's important.
Come back to the state. Come back over here. Help us understand it. You did. We appreciate you coming
Of course.
Documents that outline new movement in the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. In our effort to bring you more to every story, Crimp 2's Shannon Mowdy spoke with a defense attorney about new filings that reference Brady Giglio material.
New filings in the Moscow murder case show prosecutors have found and are now sharing with the defense possible Brady Giglio material. Now, while much of the information is sealed, we do know it has something to do with a, quote, confidential internal affairs investigation of one of the officers in the case.
And it could be huge for the defense, or it could be totally meaningless. So since we don't know what it is,
Defense attorney John Henry Brown says Brady Giglio means law enforcement and prosecutors have to turn over any evidence or information that may help the defense.
actually under Giglio and Brady, prosecutors have an obligation to look for such evidence.
Sometimes that's evidence which exonerates the accused. But with mention of an internal affairs investigation, it sounds like this case is about a potential challenge to the credibility of a police officer.
Most police departments have created what's called a Brady list. Lists are officers, detectives, internal personnel who have committed some sort of an error in the past, and that the defense should be told about it.
Brown cautions Brady Giglio disclosures like this are pretty common because not handing over the information can get cases overturned. And the Brady Giglio material referenced here may have nothing to do with the Moscow murder case itself.
It could be something as small as a DUI 25 years ago. Or it could be something more serious. Obviously, the most serious thing for the prosecution, the state, would be if the officer, detective, or whatever, has some history of not telling.
Crim 2 News reached out to law enforcement in Idaho, Washington, and also in Pennsylvania, where the suspect was arrested, to try to find out which agency is involved. We've also submitted public records requests for more information. Shannon Mowdy, Crim 2 News.
So the Brady Giglio material can be filed, especially if evidence haven't been turned in. Now that they're demolishing the house that has the 3 unidentified male DNAs, whatever they're covering up, hate to say that word, but it's the truth, it doesn't make sense.
Or the occupant of the vehicle. They could be witness. They never said that they're suspects or anything, but obviously they're not going to do that because they're not supposed to. give out too much information because the person can run or do whatever. But they said occupants is actually a bit too much information too. Because if the occupants, they would know exactly what the police are searching for. And they could destroy that car, get rid of the car, move away from town, which could have possibly happened if it was in Brian Coburn. Brian Koberger, his alibi, as far as we know, is he was driving and he doesn't sleep at night. Many people could say, I've seen many people laughing about that, even I found it kind of a bit amusing at the start. But then, later on, I thought to myself, took time and I thought, you know what, it is possible. Many people who cannot sleep at night do usually like to drive or take a walk, take a jog, cycle. There's no crime in driving at night. But then I found it amusing because how come his knife sheath was found there? But then I've thought of that too. And this is speculation. I have to say it when I'm speculating. And this could be a far stretch, so bear in mind. What if, do you remember that Brian Koberger made the research in 2020, asking for participants in his horrific research, saying, how did you feel before you committed a crime? How did you feel after? How did you leave the crime scene? Those nonsense questions. So just say, if his mindset was already there, he could have found people who wanted to take revenge or do whatever, allegedly, and say, okay, I'll help you all, I'll make a plan for you all, and you can borrow my knife. It's just a thought I came to think about recently. And he maybe have given them his knife, but whoever did the horrific crime left the night sheet by mistake in the crime scene, or left it on purpose to frame him, or to get him and not them. That is possible. That's the only way I can see a knife sheet coming in there. And the reason that I thought of it in this way is because his phone pinged around the areas, but he did not get off his car. We did not see him going all out of the car, getting into the sliding door or whatever door and coming out from whichever entrance. We haven't seen that. And if the police had that, they would have turned it in, wouldn't they? If the prosecution had, I'm sure they have that, but if the prosecution wanted this to be a speedy trial, they would have handed everything over. So now they're telling a young man, we're going to take away, you have your rights to defend yourself, but we're not going to turn over the three unidentified male DNAs. Especially, words are really important. Words are really important to not only understand, but to really, really observe what is being said. They are actually saying that we have three unidentified DNAs, because Inside Edition, Fox News, New York Post couldn't have just got those things out of thin air. They couldn't have made that up. That's illegal. So this was what they were told by. So if they have the three male unidentified DNAs, why don't they just turn it in? They're not turning it in because they know that will acquit. Brian Kohlberg. The charges will have to be dropped. Or more people of interest will be involved. I've heard people saying they had a big party there, so it could be someone from the party. No. Let me explain to you something. One of the unidentified male DNAs was found behind the Good Vibes picture. So I would assume that maybe in the fight struggle, the killer or the killers held, maybe the frame was falling down or something and they held it without a glove. That's one way I could think of. People can think about it and leave your comments. It'll be interesting. I learned so much from y'all too. And it's important in a case like this to think out of the box. It's really important. I ain't a lawyer. Law isn't my subject. I really respect lawyers, but I've never thought of law and criminology and all is not my subject. But mental health, psychology, such things is what always interested me, because I believe the world has too many lawyers. The world doesn't have enough people in mental health. And yeah, we can see clearly how much suffering is going on, how much killing is going on. Trigger warning. Because due to different reasons, but especially due to people who have mental health illness. So when they are not, when they're not attending counseling, therapy and all, if they're not seen by a psychiatrist and by the mental health team, it becomes difficult for them. And then we wonder, as the public, what went wrong? Like, I'll give you an example. Beatrice Bishaw, you can check it in my channel. Way down in my channel a couple of months ago, I was covering this case of Beatrice Bishaw. She was a young lawyer, a real estate lawyer in Florida. And I'm sure you'll remember she ran with the SUV in a crowd of people. Everyone was judging her. Many people wrote it in my comment section. Why are you defending her? And you shouldn't be defending her. And she was doing this because she's a lawyer and she has experience. So she's trying to fool the law. Good example, it's like Brian Kohlberg. But the difference with Beatrice, I always told people, because of my mental health background, I could clearly see, and I believed her when she told the officers that she was put in a psychiatrist's ward 4 separate times. She was suffering of bipolar and schizophrenia. This was around the when COVID was just finished. She didn't see her doctor in the period of the whole COVID time. The last time she saw a doctor was in 2019, at the end of 2019. She stopped taking her medications straight after that. She didn't go to get any medications, and I assume it's because she had a good career and everything, and she thought kind of like she could manage, although she knew the danger of not taking her medications. Beatrice was going to get married to a fiancé, so she was trying to stop taking the medications because she wanted to get pregnant and she thought it will affect her pregnancy. It was proven later on that Beatrice was suffering from mental health illness. So even Texas, that are strict on the mental health laws, they took time. They took a couple of months. She was arrested for a couple of months. They checked everything, obviously with psychiatrists, with counselors coming to the stand and everyone. And they found out. Thank God nobody died that she ran over. Nobody was seriously injured, so that was good. That was one blessing in disguise. But they understood that this woman shouldn't be held accountable. Because honestly, if you ask me, that is more an issue of, wouldn't say the mental health team, even a GP, her family. Everyone has a duty to do something when you have a family member suffering of serious mental health illness, or if you have a family member suffering or showing symptoms of mental health illness. You could save a life by getting them help. Her family said they did not see it coming, but in a way, that's the part I had an issue with. She was put in psychiatrist wards before, so that's not an excuse. The family knew that she stopped taking her medication. So what I'm trying to say is not, even she got a fair trial, and everyone's entitled to a fair trial. So when the reason about the Beatrice Bishop case as an example is, it is so wrong that we start, speculation is wrong. But speculation is allowed as long as you say it's speculation, so that people don't get it mixed up and run around thinking it's a fact. But it's not right that when there's not enough facts, evidence, the prosecution isn't turning out. They're not basically submitting the evidence. You heard Prosecution Thompson, what he clearly said. Oh, we can't give out what we don't have. Now what you have, you're supposed to keep it safely, because you know a trial is going to begin, so that you can hand it over. Why wouldn't you turn it over? It's not that he doesn't have it. He knows it jeopardizes the case for him. Let's be honest. The homeworks was done incorrectly by Idaho Moscow police. Allegedly. The prosecution are seeking for the death penalty, but they're not ready for the trial either, because they're trying to hold on to the male DNAs, the 3 male DNAs that were found behind the Vibes picture, the latent shoe print with the diamond shape in front of Dylan's room, very important, and the third is the glove that was found outside the scene. That can be questioned about. I've heard many people questioning that, but still, it is part of the evidence. Now all of a sudden the prosecution says, we can't give you anything that isn't turned in, and what we have got from the labs, we've turned it in. And no, you haven't. No, darling, you haven't. Just give BK, his lawyer, the 3 unidentified male evidence, because it proves that there's something to it. If these 3 unidentified male evidence was from people who were over at the party and such things, believe me, the prosecution would have given it. They would have said, here, here, and here. 100 people were in the party, and we checked this in evidence, and we found out the 3 evidence came from Mike, John, and Paul. Example. But they ain't doing it, because they know that the 3 unidentified emails was on the scene during the crime. That's how I take it. You can take it the way you want, but it's the truth. We have to use our common sense, because the prosecution can try it, and Taylor can try it, but we have to use our common sense and see what fits in the puzzle and what doesn't. We can't force something in a puzzle that doesn't fit. It doesn't go that way. The prosecution is trying to actually bully this tribe. I hate to say that. They're trying to shove it on BK, blame it on BK, which he could possibly have done it. Nobody said that BK is innocent. I've never said BK is innocent. In fact, I'm thinking that BK is involved. He could have been the master plan of all of it, but I don't think he was in the crime scene. Or maybe BK wasn't involved at all. Because prove it to me. If people are going to say, yeah, but the knife sheet links into, who knows who brought that knife exactly to the scene? Let's ask ourselves that. It could have been stolen from BK's house. It could have been stolen from his desk. It could have been stolen from anywhere. Somebody could have ordered it on his name. He could have, no, sorry, I take that back. Nobody could have ordered it obviously on his name, but think about other ways that that DNA could have landed there. Maybe BK has come into that house before for whatever purpose. We know that Emma Bailey was in the house, and we know that BK is a recovering heroin addict. Now that is one serious drug that is very addictive. So people can go back on heroin easily, they can relapse. I know that as a counselor. If his PhD got too much in, he could have even gone there because Emma was there and he was going to get something else from her. We know that Emma, Bailey, and Demetrius the charges have been dropped of overdosing a person. We've seen Emma in that house. We've seen drugs being distributed or not distributed. We have been seeing all kind of dodgy behaviors happening at the grub truck. And it's up to everyone to believe what they believe. I clearly saw Number 9 putting in something in Maddie's mouth, and that wasn't a chewing gum. That wasn't a receipt. I've even heard a receipt. I'm not going to say anything wrong. I'm holding myself back. Why would somebody come and put up a paper in your mouth? Inside your mouth. Why would that happen? If people say it's as a joke, no. Number 9 went clearly behind, waved his hand, did whatever, got whatever, and he exchanged something. He pulled out his hand, he gave something, and then he took something. He gave money, he got the drugs. I'm not born yesterday. So I really don't care, honestly, what people say about the comment. Say in the comments, as long as they're not rude, we all can have the right to disagree. You can agree to disagree respectfully. I've seen so many dodgy characters around this case. And the one that I seem to be getting most heat for, which I find really interesting, and the more people share me, or leave him alone and don't say his name, the more I'm going to investigate deep on that person. Right now, Jack D seems to be getting all fans and groupies telling me, oh, Jack D wasn't there. Why would you say this about his hand? Why would you say that about the best one I've heard? I have to share it with you all. A couple of months ago, the first time I put in the clip of Jack D with the swollen face. Somebody said, leave him alone. He was crying that he lost his former girlfriend. They said his girlfriend. Let's get that correct. Kaylee Jane Congalvis was his former girlfriend. That's very important to get clear here. They said that I think this is a classic. I had to laugh myself to sleep. It was one of those things that you think, I can't believe you actually said that. They said that, yeah, he had a swollen face because he was crying for his former girlfriend. So I said, If he had a swollen face, answered in the comment, then why would he have band-aids on his fingers and his hand had a band-aid? The person said, oh yeah, because when he heard about what happened to Kaylee and the girls, he got so angry he punched a glass and then he got hurt. If he punched a glass and got hurt or a window, we would have known, we would have heard about it. But this happened when I noticed these things on his hands and fingers, it was when he came to pick up Murphy, his dog. And that was when the murders happened, so you can't get away with that. My red flags on Jack D is a list from 1 to 1,000, and I hope Ann Taylor has noticed those two. I don't get anything of accusing someone else of any crime. But what I find fishy, what I see with my 2 eyes, I ain't going to back off. I'm going to do it mindfully, but I'm not going to back off. At least if the person said, yeah, he could have got into a fight the night before, I would have understood. I would have thought, okay, yeah, he was in the corner club. Maybe he exchanged words with someone and they punch, he says. But they didn't punch, he says. You could see literally his face was bashed in. What about the hands? We've heard from experts and professionals that when you do such trigger warning, the knife goes in and out and then it can scar, it can injure your hands. What a coincidence that his whole hand was bandaged. He kept on looking down at the floor. He was hiding from the cameras. That's a telltale sign. He was talking to his auntie and doing like this. He kept on. He had his hands in his pockets. What are we going to say about that? Many people were ruled out too soon. And another red flag I have of Jack D is very, very simple. Jack D, why were you ruled out the last? And it's not my words, but what CNN when they're asking the Congalvis family. It's only Jack D, his former sister-in-law Olivia, and the former mother-in-law Kaylee's mother who were defending it at the start. You saw the look the father gave when he was on the stage and when he turned around from his microphone and he saw him talking. Jack D holding the mother like that. If looks could kill, that was a look you'd never want to see anyone giving you that look. Jack D did not contact Kaylee and Maddie's mother to tell them what had happened. They found out later. Jack D came out with a stupid excuse he was sleeping. He came out with the same excuse that he was sleeping when the girls called him 10 times. How much sleep does he need? We saw him at the corner club. The timeline said 1:35. So where was this man? He said playing PlayStation. Strange. He had a white Honda parked in front of his house. Why? The white pickup that we see going towards the corner club and parking is exactly the same one that's in front of his house too. There are many people who have white Hondas. In fact, there are 22,000 people who have white Hondas in Idaho, Moscow. Just Idaho, Moscow. We haven't even gone to the nearby counties like Washington. Could Brian Koberger allegedly have been picked up and pointed out because he was different from the others? Because he didn't engage in the others? We've heard of Emma Bailey, Demetrius, and BK at one party. Could Could they have got to know each other from there and planned it? Or could they have decided to frame Koberger from there? Is that possible? Anything is possible. The prosecution needs to turn over the 3 unidentified male DNAs so we can find out who the other 3 people were in that house.